Good morning, partners in crime. It is great to see you. Today we have with us Elizabeth Crowens, and she is the author of so many books. She's worn many hats in the entertainment industry and has a popular caption contest on Facebook. And that is actually a lot of fun. I really enjoy all the pictures she posts, and I can't imagine where she finds them. Um, you have three award-winning alternate history novels, and your newest release, Hounds of the Hollywood Baskervilles, is also an award-winning book. And it's the first book in your Babs Norman Hollywood three-book series with Level Best Books. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to see you today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about this new mystery,
Well,
Hounds of the Hollywood Baskervilles?
whoops, there we go. With the virtual background, it's always a little hard. Here's the cover of the book. It is basically Sherlock Holmes meets the Thin Man. It's 1940s Hollywood, and apparently Basil Rathbone has lost his dog. Now, could you imagine him going into the NYPD? I mean, not NYPD, LAPD, or the City Pound, and saying, "Can you help me find my dog?" And they laugh him out of there. It's like Sherlock Holmes has lost his dog. I mean, 1940s Hollywood. Who was playing Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yeah.
Basil Rathbone. So he's desperate. He makes flyers and goes around to local vets' offices and runs into two former actors who are now PIs who have been rescuing a box of kittens. And they recognize them. They start a conversation, and he's ready to hire them sight unseen. And they're a little, like, wait a minute, we're really not pet detectives per se, but Babs Norman, who is the head of the agency, and she's the female head of the agency. She actually is a male partner who is her subordinate.
Yeah.
But she notices he's got a variety magazine, and there's a full page ad from MGM. Asta from the Thin Man movie is also missing, and MGM is offering a huge reward because they can't go into production without him. So she manages to cut a deal with Basil and said, "Okay, if you want to help us, and partner up with Nick and the real Nick and Nora Charles, Myrna Loy, and William Powell, and we could go after your dog, and we could go after Asta. Let's do it." So that's where the story begins. And there's a very, very sinister element lurking behind the scene, behind
Yeah.
celebrity dog nappings. But it's like a screwball comedy from the 1940s. It's laugh out loud funny, and it's clearly entertaining. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That sounds like so much fun. Um, so before looking at your book, I, you know, watch a lot of movies and stuff, but I hadn't specifically watched the golden age of Hollywood movies. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you focused on that time period?
Well, first of all, I think some of the best movies were made back then. But it's a very interesting time period. It starts in the 30s, I'd say 30s through the early 60s.
Mhm.
But it's when the studios ran the system. You had contract players. It's a totally, totally different ball game now. Everybody's independent. In fact, you could pick up an iPhone and shoot a movie, and if you've got the right, and you could put it up on YouTube. So
Yeah.
it's not the same situation. I mean, the Hollywood studio system actually manufactured stars. Stars were under contract, and they wanted to come up with an image for you.
Yeah. Right.
It was an interesting, it was like a factory, in a certain sense, a manufacturing process. But and it started, I'd say, in 1927 with the jazz singer put out by Warner Brothers. And prior to that, everything was the silence. And a lot of people did not make the silent transition to the talkies. So a lot of people were very emotive. Maybe they had a theatrical background, and yet great example was Singing in the Rain, where they had to dub the actress with the terrible voice with Debbie Reynolds' voice, because the woman, she had a horrible voice, she couldn't sing, and yet she was a huge silent screen star, so they were promoting her. So a lot of that was going on back then. But if you knew how to play your cards right, you could have a very lucrative career in Hollywood. And I based Babs Norman on a friend of mine who actually was a disgruntled actress during the 40s in Hollywood and got out of the business. So she was not a PI, but she and I discussed it before she passed away. Unfortunately, she would be, let's see, this year I think she would have been 101 if she had still been around. And she and I discussed it. She loved mysteries. She loved animals. And she gave me, we literally got her estate attorney and drew up a contract. She gave me the rights to her life story. So she had a lot of really great stories, but because she wasn't famous, it was going to be extremely difficult for me to try to get to sell a memoir for her. So I was trying to figure out, wait a minute, if we kind of fictionalize you and kind of make you a little larger than life and kind of come up with some interesting angles, maybe we could sell you as a fictional character. When I asked her about the PI, she said, oh, I love it. Let's go for it. So that's kind of how I came up with the Babs Norman series.
So was Babs Norman a real person? I mean,
she was based on a real person, yes.
Well, yes, but was she like at all real?
She was not a PI, but she was an actress, kind of an actress in Hollywood in 1940s.
And when did the golden age of Hollywood end?
I would say in the early 60s with Warner Brothers, because I've been writing a lot about Warner Brothers with my sequel. With Warner Brothers, it was around 1961, 62. Jack Warner's last movie, big blockbuster movie, was the one with Audrey Hepburn and Rex Harrison, My Fair Lady. And that actually, I think, won a few Oscars. But it was pretty much around that time when all the studio moguls that started the studios and really forged the studios, they were all retiring or kind of, passing away basically. So a lot of independent producers started coming in, and that's when the studio system started breaking down.
Wow. Okay, so now Babs, what is it that you love about her that you made her, like, you wanted to focus on her and who she is as a person, the character, not the real person?
I like the fact that she's doing something very gutsy in the 1940s that almost no women did. And she kind of has that Lois Lane, Torchy Blaine, type of character, but I've got her as a PI as opposed to a reporter. So, I just like that. She's willing to stick her neck out and really wants to be taken seriously. It's like, yes, I could succeed at this, and I will.
In the book, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a portion where she has some trouble because she is a female and she's working with a lot of men, and wives aren't really happy with her. So that's a real problem for her as she does her PI business because her clients aren't mostly women.
Correct. Sometimes she has her sidekick. She's got her partner Guy Brandt, and sometimes he has to kind of step in for credibility, even though he is kind of her secretary, and definitely way below her as far as the agency is concerned. But sometimes he just has to step in because a male front man is more credible, and she knows it and he knows it too. She's not thrilled about it, but he's also an actor, so he's pretty good at thinking on his feet.
He also keeps her kind of in line.
Yes. Yes. We get a little out of hand at times.
A little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about the series and where you're going to take the series?
Well, I won't say, because right now I only have a 3-book deal. I
Mhm.
won't say that each particular book is going to be like a year's progression. But the first book ends in November of 1940. And obviously, it's towards the end of the year. So I start the second book in 1941, but in the summer. And I will also have another famous movie or movie stars, affiliated with the movie around that. So, and so will the third book is going to take place in 1942, and I will have the same theme going there.
And they will all feature Babs and Guy
Yes, yes,
and
absolutely.
their agency. That's
Yes,
exciting. And you're going to stay in Hollywood.
yes, yes. For now, absolutely.
Okay.
There might be a situation where Babs has to go abroad, but right now, abroad in Europe and over in Asia is a war going on.
Yeah.
The United States has not gotten involved yet until December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed. But there definitely is war raging over in Europe. So, and everybody is very cognizant of that. So she will not be leaving Los Angeles that quickly.
So how much history research do you need to do? I mean, obviously you're going to have to watch movies to see the characters and what else do you need to do?
Oh, well, lots of movies, lots of library research. I spent a lot of time over at the Lincoln Center Library of Performing Arts. I make at least 3, 4 trips to Los Angeles every year. So I spent, excuse me, a lot of time over at the Margaret Herrick Library, which is part of the Motion Picture Academy, over at the LA County Public Library downtown. Um, I I walk the walk. Used to be a
You
former
really
child
immerse
runner.
yourself in 1940.
Oh no, absolutely. Many times I look up old locations if they're still around. I try to take pictures of them. Obviously, I've been in places like the Roosevelt Hotel. I actually got to. It is no longer there. It is now a middle school, but I actually got to film several movies over at the old Ambassador Hotel, which had the Coconut Grove. But I have to go through like major archives to be able to dig up old photos. And I'm working on a standalone right now that's not finished. And every time I ran into somebody who was a historian, it's like, where can I find pictures of Mulholland Drive from 1938?
Yeah.
And because a lot of these places, I mean, Sherman Oaks, a lot of the areas of the valley, those were orange groves back in 1938. So, you have to, and in fact, I've got some scenes in that other work in progress that take place in the business district of Burbank in 1938. And it looked very different, back then than it does now. And a lot of the businesses are no longer there, but you've got to get a feeling as to like how crowded the streets are, how densely populated, and it's that kind of thing. You don't want to describe something. In fact, you're going to laugh. I went on the Warner Brothers studio tour recently, for the TCM studio tour. And I apologized to the tour guide. I said, look, you have to realize I am writing several novels that, were, about productions that were from Warner Brothers. from the golden age of Hollywood. And I said, if I sound like a know-it-all when I blurt out stuff or correct you, don't get upset about it. And I was really surprised because our tour guide did not know that there was a flood in 1938, and a good chunk of the Warner Brothers lot fell into the LA River basin. And he looked at me like, you've got to be kidding me. And while after the Warner Brothers studio tour ended, I was able, while I was on the way to the parking garage, I actually found an area that was skirting by the LA River basin. So I was taking pictures, obviously, within studio standards. I wasn't going to get in trouble for, sneaking into sound stations, making pictures of stuff that I wasn't supposed to. But I did want to get a feeling as to what side, I wanted to verify in my mind where exactly was the LA River basin in, conjunction with the layout of Warner Brothers. So because I talk about it, in the thing, and in the book, and I was really surprised the tour guide had never heard of that. So, I'll bring stuff up like that. And, usually I get thanked. Once in a while they look at me like, gee, she knows more than I do. Maybe she should be the tour guide.
So what was one of the coolest things that you learned besides that in your research for the studios?
Oh, gee. I know there was something this was kind of a strange kismet. In the first book, I'll do a little bit of a spoiler. Obviously, they want to go around and Basil hooks up with the two PIs, and they're interviewing just about anybody they could think of who could be a possible suspect. So at one point, they interviewed Dashiell Hammett. And, a lot of times, even though he only wrote the first Thin Man screenplay, the other ones were adapted. They had different screenwriters, and he only wrote the book, the first book, which the first movie was based off of. He made a comment because Asta in the book, and in fact, sorry, excuse me, I actually won a trivia contest at Malice Domestic, not this year, but I think 2 years ago, where somebody was holding up objects and you had to guess which mystery it was. And somebody held up a stuffed schnauzer. And I said, oh, that's Asta, and people kind of looked at me because in the movies, Asta is a wire-haired fox terrier.
Right.
And in the book, he's a schnauzer.
Oh.
And yes, and they could not find a schnauzer that was well trained enough to do what they needed to do in the movie. So they ended up using a similar size dog, but a different breed. And I have Basil Rathbone and my two PIs query Dashiell Hammett. And he was mentioning that about the schnauzer. And they figure, well, could there be a disgruntled screenwriter, who might be upset that they didn't follow your book or, whatever. And he said, you know what, it is out of my hands. I only wrote the first screenplay, and Warner Brothers, or actually it was MGM. MGM could do whatever they want. And he said they could turn it into, excuse me, a skunk, an orangutan. And he said it could be they could replace dog with a foul-mouthed, wisecracking minor bird. Well, in doing this is the funny part of the story. In doing research and working on the sequel, my PIs at one point are with Humphrey Bogart, and they have a meeting with Jack Warner. And Jack Warner is a character and a half. And at one point, Jack Warner makes a comment about somebody gave him a foul-mouthed wisecracking minor bird. And I wrote this in the first book before even reading the Jack Warner biography, right? And he drove the bird nuts. And they had to give the bird away because he outcursed the bird. Now, you can't make this up, you know? So, and the irony of it is in book 2, a little bit of a giveaway, there is a foul mouth voice cracking by a bird. So I have references to this bird all the time, you know, throughout the book. So, but stuff like that, you know, when you do the research and then you come up with something like that, you can't make it up. It's just too good. You got to use it. You know?
And your stories are laugh out loud funny, but
They
with the crime and the mystery elements to them.
Yes, no, absolutely. And the first book, Hounds of the Hollywood Baskervilles, does not involve murder. It involves dog napping
Yes.
and some very close calls for everybody involved. But the second book will involve murder, and yet it's still laugh out loud funny. So what can I say?
You like to pull humor into all of your books.
I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah.
And even my Time Traveler Professor series, which is yes, the alternate history series, which really falls into science fiction fantasy. There are moments that are quite funny. So it is not as laugh out loud funny, you know, not as much of a screwball comedy as Hounds of the Hollywood Baskervilles is, but there are definitely some laugh out loud, you know, funny moments in those too.
Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Actually, the newest one in the series, A War in Too Many Worlds, the purple one that you held up. There is, I think, one of my favorite chapters is when John Patrick Scott, who is my protagonist, he has been doing, since the first book, some interesting kind of paranormal experiments. And he got involved, he got Arthur Conan Doyle involved with these because in real life, Arthur Conan Doyle was really into this kind of stuff. He was into seances. He was a member of the London Society of Psychophone Research. So I kind of play up that area of Conan Doyle's biography and of course, highly fictionalize it, you know, to the point where, you know, they get involved in time travel and H.G. Wells and Harry Houdini. However, in what was the second book or the third book? Now I'm getting confused. I'm gonna have to reread my own books. But one of the, I think it is the third book. At one point, yeah, it has to be the third book. At one point, my protagonist is working for British intelligence, and they do not know that he has developed a few psychic abilities. And he discovered while in book 2 on the Western Front that he was able to see the ghost of dead soldiers. And this was just kind of an offshoot. He was not trying to do it. It just kind of happened. And he was working undercover in Berlin, trying to ferret out a traitor to the Allied cause. And at one point, he decides to stage a fake seance, but he can communicate with 2 ghosts, real ghosts. So it almost reminds me a little bit of that scene with Whoopi Goldberg, you know, in Ghost, you know, where she was kind of a con artist and she and her sisters were, you know, doing this thing and milking people for money. And next thing you know, Patrick Swayze shows up, you know, in the seance. Well, what my protagonist does is he fakes a seance and he has his ghost show up and do some of the crazy antics and stuff. So, and there are like throwing things and making noises and, causing chairs to tip over and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But I think that's one of my favorite scenes in that, because he knows it's fake and yet he's using real ghosts to do it. So, I've got kind of crazy little black humor thing going on in a lot of my books. But
They're a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun to read.
Yeah.
Now, before we get off here, I want to talk a little bit about your caption contest.
Oh, yes.
And your book, your New York book.
Yes.
Because those are really cool things. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes. And also, by the way, the New York book is going to go out of print. It is at the end of September. So that was my arrangement.
Glad I have
my
one.
Author contributors, yes. So I was ready to say you should buy them while you still can. They're probably marked down on Amazon, is my guess, because what happens is it's an expensive book. It's a $65 coffee table book, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could probably get it for about 35, 40 bucks or so on Amazon now. I mean, I haven't checked recently, but I know a lot of times they'll warehouse a few things, and if they've got too much in stock, they'll mark it down. But I won a grant to produce that book, and then I won an award after it was produced. But I had always, my background is photography and cinematography. I worked as a still photographer for many, many years in Los Angeles, and also as a photojournalist. And but not under Elizabeth Crowens. Elizabeth Crowens is my pen name. But I always wanted to do a coffee table book. And I have a daily caption contest in the mornings, and I will post usually a funky vintage photograph that definitely warrants a caption. And I'll say, caption contest, give me your best or your worst. And in the evening, I tend to take an old film still. And sometimes it's very obscure and you have absolutely no, but it's funny as hell. And you have absolutely no idea what movie it's from. Or it could be a very recognizable movie with recognizable stars. And you're supposed to come up with stuff that's not the obvious. So all of a sudden, it might be a film still from Jaws, and you're not supposed to react, oh, that's a still from Jaws. No, you're supposed to say something really off the wall, like, this guy needs to go to a dentist, or, something really crazy. But we get some really great reactions.
Yeah.
And what I did is I pitched when I won the New York let's see, Fine Arts Grant. Foundation of the Arts Grant. I pitched it like my caption contest, but using my own photography, and they needed stuff based in New York. So I pitched, and since I've lived in New York on and off for a really long time, I had tons of material that had not been published, great old photojournalism, and even some new stuff that I had 100% rights to. So I didn't have to worry about copyright infringement or anything like that. So I picked, besides myself, 10 other authors and did like a mixed genre, mostly mystery, but also some science fiction, some memoir. And people wrote a story based on the story prompt from my photos. So that's what New York, Give Me Your Best or Your Worst is about. But it's using my photography, because I can't use the old film stills, unless they're in public domain, for a book like that. So,
yeah, I loved the book, and the people that you pulled together were perfect. The stories are wonderful, and I love looking at the images and stuff. So it was very, very interesting, as is your caption contest, because I just love looking at those pictures and the captions people come up with.
Yeah, no, it is quite entertaining. I have actually met a lot of people at conferences that I had not met before, and they recognized me from the caption contest. So it's like, oh my God, she's the caption contest lady. So I have actually made lots of great friends as a result of the caption contest. And friend me on Facebook, for that. So I try to post a lot of the same photos on both X or Twitter and Instagram. It doesn't quite, translate as well on
Yeah.
those two platforms. It's a lot more fun on Facebook because you can really, respond to it a little bit better.
Yeah. You have a lot more comments on Facebook.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So people, if you want a copy of this, you definitely need to grab it very soon. And then your books are available everywhere, actually.
Amazon, or you can go to your favorite bookstore, and they are sold through Ingram. So they could also, if you don't like Amazon, which some people don't, you could order through your favorite bookstore, and just they can look up the ISBN number on that one. And same thing with Hounds of the Hollywood Baskervilles. I would love more bookstores to actually carry it. I'm not exactly sure how much my publisher is doing with distribution. I mean, I'm doing quite a bit, but it's always difficult, to say, okay, I know several bookstores that have signed copies, but other than that, you can always order it through bookshop.org, or you could order it again through your, favorite bookstore, ask your library
Yes.
to stock it, ask your book club, say, hey, let's read this for our book club. So, I'm trying to get the word out. It's a fun book, and, I'm hoping people will enjoy it. It is literally my first mystery, though. So
Wow.
I will be eligible next year for the Agathas over at Malice Domestic as best first mystery. So
That's exciting.
yeah. And next year for Left Coast Crime, please consider me on the ballot for best humorous mystery, because that's what it is.
Oh, cool.
So
And your next book is Bye Bye Blackbird, right?
yes, bye
And
bye.
when can we expect that?
March, beginning of March 2025. I'm hoping to debut it at Left Coast Crime in Denver.
Yeah.
I also hope to bring it to the vintage paperback show in Glendale, California. So they have invited me. I'm gonna, hopefully, if I could get it in time, I will be there in Los Angeles signing. And I'll be at Malice Domestic next year. I'll be at BoucherCon. I'll be at all the major, mystery conventions.
You're going to be another country traveler again next year, all over the place.
Yes. No, I've been on the road for pretty much the last 2 months. So,
Wow.
promoting the book. And if you like the Maltese Falcon and Humphrey Bogart, you'll love Bye Bye Blackbird. So
Excellent. We will have to take a look. Thanks, Partners in Crime. We will see you soon. Talk
thank
to you
you.
again.
Bye bye.